Before we get to our episode, I want to take a moment to tell you about a platform that is revolutionizing the way SMP artists market their clinics, and best of all, you don't need to spend money on ads to use it. The platform is called HighLead, and it's a complete sales and marketing system created by an SMP artist that is guaranteed to generate more bookings for your clinic. HighLead helps you capture, nurture, and close more business with dozens of features, including your own website chat widget, a unified text message, phone, and email marketing system, a review management system, helpful automations, and so much more. And beyond that, HighLead's team gives you one-on-one sales and marketing training, step-by-step onboarding calls, and responsive support. If you're ready to fill your pipeline with quality SMP leads, check out HighLead right now at gohighlead.com. You can get access to a 20-minute overview video to see behind the scenes or book a live one-on-one demo with the founder to get all your questions answered with absolutely no risk or obligations. Check out gohighlead.com today. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Scalp Solutions Podcast. I am your host, David Santiago, and today we have a special guest who is not only an expert in business taxes, but she also helps hair professionals build premium brands focused on profits through business coaching, bookkeeping, and tax services, and DIY digital products. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Jennifer Drew, aka the Hair CEO. What is up?
What's up? Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Thank you for taking out some time out of your busy schedule to jump on the podcast. I appreciate you.
Absolutely.
So, Jennifer, I want to just jump right into it because I have a lot to ask, because I know my community in this industry, when it comes to the topic of taxes, we just have absolutely no idea what the hell is going on. But before we do that, I kind of want to bring you into something that recently happened with me. And just like any other, entrepreneur, business owner, we don't understand the true importance of keeping proper tax records, let alone how to keep those, them. It can become a burden for us. So what ended up happening to me for not hiring a professional, and I know I kind of gave you a little context at the end, and it may have come across like this person was a professional, but what he is a franchise owner of a tax firm.
Okay.
So now when I was presented with this, and this gentleman's like, I own 15 of these, I just automatically assumed you can't own this type of a business without having some knowledge in it. And again, like, who would? Like, why would you? Now I know it could be done.
Yes, it
So,
can.
the beginning of this year, I get a letter from the IRS telling me that I owe them $30,000 in taxes. To be exact, it was like $29,300 and some changes. $30,000.
And is that for 1 year?
It's a lot for 1 year. So now we start making phone calls, and come to find out, $100,000 went unclaimed, if I'm using the correct verbiage.
Yeah.
I don't know how that happened because I gave all the information. So I'm only one person I can hold accountable for, which was, subject A. That's what we're going to.
Exactly. Yeah, there you
subject
go.
A, who owns 15 different income tax agencies, or whatever you call them, pop-ups.
Right.
So for me, even when I seen you on social media, the content that you was putting out, I was like, holy shit, like, man, like, why didn't I get this last year so I wouldn't be dealing with the problems that I was dealing with now? And then as I started telling other people, my friends in my community, in the SMP community, about what was going on, a whole bunch of them was like, yo, the same thing happened to me. I'm getting audited, XYZ, or I was doing it on
Yeah.
my own. I went to this local tax services, again, another little franchise place. And, they establish authority, but they really don't know um, what's going on. So like I know you're going to provide so much value, not only to me, but to the rest of the SMP community as to like why it's so important to actually have someone who genuinely understands and knows taxes and has the accreditation to
Yeah.
to do so. So before to get right into this, can you just let the audience know about your accounting firm and what services it is that you actually provide that's exclusive to hair businesses, correct?
Yeah, yeah. And I'm gonna go quickly because I got so much to say based on your situation that just happened. Like I got so much to say. But so yeah, so I started my accounting firm. It's called the Hair CEO Group, and it's a business advisory, bookkeeping, and tax firm tailored specifically to hair professionals and business owners in the hair industry. And so, like it says, it's business advisory. So I do business coaching, it's bookkeeping and tax services. But what makes us unique is that we're only servicing hair professionals or people in the hair business. And the reason why that's so important is because a lot of people don't understand this, but when it comes to taxes, your deductions have to be industry specific and they have to be ordinary and necessary for your industry. So not everyone is going to be well versed in what's deductible for your business. And so most accountants are general practitioners. They're dealing with all types of businesses. And so they, especially on like IG and TikTok, and everybody's talking about, oh, you can deduct this. And I'm just like, yeah, but what they're leaving out is that that's for certain businesses. And they don't care about making that distinguishment because they know that they're not doing the taxes. So they get all the likes, they get all the shares because it's like, oh, I want to write off my car, I want to do it. But then they come to me who's actually got to do the stuff. And I'm just like, yeah, but like that doesn't apply to you. That doesn't apply to your business type. That's not ordinary or necessary for your business. And that makes a huge difference. So I think that's what makes us different because we only cater to hair professionals. And another thing is that because, that's my background, I own the hair salon. I've never done hair, but being always on the business side of things before I opened up my hair salon, I had a distribution company of hair products. So I've always been in the beauty industry and the hair industry, but on the business side. But it wasn't until I got into that service industry where I really started to see like, oh man, like this area, like there's a lot needed in this area. And to piggyback off what just happened to you, oh man, like that just resonates with me because listen, when you're talking about regular tax franchises, you have to understand who their typical client is. Their typical client are W-2 employees. And these are people who are paying into the tax system on a regular basis with a W-2 job. And a lot of these people are due refunds. And the way that these tax franchises retain their clients is by getting them a big refund, or if they're dealing with business owners, by making them pay the very least, but not the legal way. So they go through so many, like, I won't even call them loopholes because they're not even loopholes. They're doing things that are illegal and just to avoid you paying taxes. But in a situation like yourself, now you got $30,000, and I'm sure that includes a lot of penalties
That was
and hella penalties, right? So then it's just like, is it worth it? And it's not.
not at all, because I was stressed out because I immediately, like when you hear these things, you like the stories you hear is just like conditioning to like, oh shit, I'm going to jail.
Yeah. I heard somebody tell me that the other day. She was like, Jennifer, I just need you to keep me out of jail. It's like, what?
Yeah, and then you start getting these letters like you have until this date, and I'm like, but I'm just getting this now. Like, who do I call? I can't get through.
Yeah, they never answer the phone, right?
And you know what? And I don't want to get off topic, but to still stay on it, right? So with the fees and everything, they told me it was $30,000.
Okay.
Now I go and I find myself a legit CPA,
Yep.
not someone that is, that focuses on hair kind of like you. But to me, I was like, I just need someone who's legit. Like, I
Yes.
need to see everything. Show me diplomas. I need to see all this. I'm
Yeah.
not playing this game no more. And when they wrote back to the IRS came back, made the adjustments.
Okay.
It ended up being $15,000. It was like $14,000 and some change. So to me, and another reason why it was important, man, I was like, man, I really hope I can bring her on to the podcast, because had I not sought out a professional,
Yeah.
I would have just automatically assumed that the IRS knew what they were doing, and that was the number, because there's someone back there, number
Crunching.
crunching, and they just hired, it was all over the news. They just hired like 800 more agents that are coming.
80,000.
Look at that, 8,000, coming for small business owners. I'm like, there's no way they didn't just pull this number out their tail. That's like 30
Yes.
grand. But now I get an accountant, a legit accountant, and it goes down to half. Can we kind of like touch on that? Like, what could
What
have
happens with
possibly
that?
happened?
Yeah. So two things, right? So you're saying that the IRS came back and said you underreported. You underreported by
Yeah,
$100,000. That's
$100,000.
that's what they're saying, correct?
Yes.
Well, what could potentially happen, of course, because I don't know your specific situation, but that professional, that CPA or that EA, could have gone through your records and said that the IRS could have double counted your money. So I've seen that happen. I had something very similar happen where I had to write to the IRS, very, very similar situation where not taxes that I prepared, but the person came to me, similar to you, and owed $39,000. Came to me and was like, yo, like I'm having problems. Going through the records, and I found that the IRS double counted their money. And that's because when they filed the tax return, they didn't include some income that was on the 1099 that the IRS had, and they included it in all of their cash receipts. And so the IRS was like, "Oh, well, you didn't tell us about this 1099, but it was already captured in the cash receipts." So that's just one way that it could have gone down. But another thing is that it could have been that maybe it was unclaimed money, but then that accountant could have come back and said, well, these were expenses that weren't captured, or you didn't take into consideration these deductions. So, we're fighting it on from that angle. So again, it depends, but there are ways around it. And the IRS is not just like, oh yeah, this is what you owe and that's it. Like, no, as an EA and as a CPA, we have the ability to represent our clients in front of the IRS and say, we are disputing what you are saying my client owes.
Got you. But essentially, if I would have just said, all right, you know what, I want to be done with this, and I would have paid them the 30 grand, that's it, it's gone. It's
Oh
lost.
yeah, they would have taken your money
So
happily.
how that's crazy. And like I said, I don't want to go off topic. And I know, like, we had some background dialogue, and we were like, I know we're not gonna be able to cover everything that we possibly can want. But it's like, how many other small businesses are just getting these letters and it's like, you know what, I just want to send that money in, get it through without seeking?
Oh, I would say the majority. The majority.
Crazy. What
But you know what? I think one of the reasons why that's happening is because unsimilar to you, right? You were working with someone, even if they weren't on the up and up, you were working with someone. So you put your confidence in that person. A lot, I would say the majority of people aren't even working with a professional. They're doing it themselves, right? Or they're hiring a friend that's not licensed. So when they get these letters, they don't have the confidence to say, oh no, I'm fighting this, or I need to go to a CPA or EA to fight this, because they just assume I did it wrong. So they don't even have that confidence to buck back at the IRS.
Yeah, because it's almost like we're conditioned, like you don't
You
mess
don't mess
with
with
them.
the IRS. It's like the mafia
Yeah,
here in
yeah,
the
yeah,
US,
exactly.
right?
So with that being said, let's just take it back, to the very foundations of it. Like, what is the role of a CPA for a small business, and when should we consider hiring one?
Yeah. So let's first talk about some definitions. So we say accountant, we say a CPA, and we say an EA. So when you say accountant, this could be someone who has a degree in accounting or has, some level of proficiency in accounting, but not necessarily licensed in accountancy. Um, And then that person could very well start a firm and be an accountant, but they just have no certifications and they have no license, but they are still able to call themselves an accountant because they've done the training. So then you have a CPA. A CPA is a certified public accountant, and they are licensed at the state level. So, you know, you could have a CPA in your state, wherever you are, and they have gone through education and test and are what I like to call these are your, because it's a public certified public accountant. What that means is that they are certified to sign off on financial statements of publicly held companies. Because if you are a publicly held company, then people are making investments of their money based on your financial statements. And so the government is saying, before we allow people to invest their hard-earned money, your financial statements have to be signed off by accountants. And they can't be signed off by people who just call themselves accountants. They have to be public, you know, certified public accountants.
Gotcha.
So that is what a CPA is. And they're mostly, I would say, auditors, because they're auditing public financial statements. But not every CPA does taxes. So you could have a CPA that is only in audits or only in accounting, but accounting doesn't necessarily equal taxes. And so then you have what's called, before I move on to the EA, but you can have CPAs who specialize in taxes. Okay. So then you have what's called the EA, which is an enrolled agent. And this is a person who is licensed at the federal level by the Department of Treasury and the IRS to do taxes and represent taxpayers, business owners. And these are people who can have accounting firms as well. But their focus is 100% on taxes.
Gotcha.
So these are people who wouldn't be able to sign off on publicly traded financial statements, but these are the people that you would go to for tax issues because that's all they focus on. So I am an EA, I'm an enrolled agent. So Google couldn't hire me to sign off on their documents, but I can file anybody's taxes and I can represent them in front of the IRS because I have that license. Does that make sense? And
Yeah.
so, for example, like there are CPAs who come to me or who have for me to do their taxes.
Right. And they'll sign off.
No. They don't sign off on the taxes. Remember, they're signing off on publicly traded companies' financial statements.
Got you. Understood. I'm tracking.
But like I have a friend who's a CPA and she was like, Jennifer, I would never do taxes. She was like, can you do my taxes? So what I'm saying is an EA would never go to a CPA to get taxes done. But there are plenty of CPAs who would go to an EA to get their taxes done.
Interesting.
Yeah, isn't it interesting? And so a lot of times people will say CPA, but what they're really saying is someone who is licensed and certified in taxes. But most people identify CPAs, but really a CPA really isn't, I would say, necessary for the small business owner because they're typically more expensive, and they're more expensive because they are certified to sign off on publicly traded companies. So they have spent so much money getting their CPA license, and they are authorized to work with the big boys. So they charge the big boy price.
Jennifer, you just fired my CPA. I'll tell you what, with that breakdown that you gave me, I would have never imagined that. And I read that book that what we spoke about earlier, the 475 write-offs. And it is say I was just looking for a CPA. When I picked up the phone,
Most people
I was like, are you a CPA? And I was like, yep, this is what my problem is, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I could take care of that.
Yeah, that's what most people assume. They assume they need a CPA, but I'm telling you, there are some CPAs I would never let touch my taxes.
Yeah, and you know, I was kind of going, it was back and forth, but then I got to the point where I was like, I just need to shut my mouth because she's a CPA.
And that's like a little bit of an issue because anyone who has that license can put on their tax firm, and then they're able to do taxes, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's where their strength is.
That's they specialize. They
Exactly. So I would say, and that's not to discredit any CPA, because they have gone through the schooling and the education, and they do have to have a certain number of continual education credits in taxes. But remember, because they serve so many different areas, they're also having continual education credits in other areas of accountancy. Whereas for me, I have to have continual education credits in tax alone. That's it. And there are so like taxes update all the time.
yeah.
So you could be dealing with a CPA who hasn't even, they don't even know about the updates because they're not necessarily required to just know taxes.
Jeez, I'm gonna take this clip. I'm gonna put money behind this clip because people need to know this differentiate the difference
Oh yeah.
between
It's
it.
a huge
Wow.
difference. It's a huge difference. And that's typically why CPAs cost so much money. And so it's really important for me, because here's the thing. When I had the idea to really start this firm, because my background, I have a college degree in economics and accounting. And so again, business has always been my strong suit. But when I decided I was going to go into taxes, I was like, all right, should I get a CPA license or should I get an EA license? But when I started looking, I was just like, there's no way I'm getting a CPA license, because I'm gonna have to know so many other things that I would never need for the people who I want to help. Like the majority of businesses in the hair industry aren't trying to go public.
Right.
They'll never have to have a CPA sign off on their financial statements. So why would I do that just for the clout of a title when I can have the expertise and a license from the Treasury Department, the IRS directly, and license at the federal level that gives me the ability to do the exact same thing that a CPA can do, with the exception of I just can't sign off on publicly traded company financial statements.
Wow.
I don't want to do that.
That's incredibly that's incredibly fascinating. And you do have a new client. Thank you. Um, and then now with that, let's bring it back to my people. So if I was, or not if I was, as an SMP artist, all right,
Yeah.
what can you tell me? What are some key tax deductions and credits that I should be aware for my clinic, for my studio?
Yeah, so what I would say when it comes to SMP, I would be very much so aware of the assets that you're buying. So there's a lot more investment in SMP. So you're talking about, expensive tools and equipment. And so one thing to consider is that you may not want to expense those costs. You may want to capitalize those costs. And what I mean by that is when we think about your taxes, and you think about a tax strategy. Not everybody needs to write off everything in order to show the least amount of money, depending on what they're trying to do in their life and where they are. So they may want to show more income. Maybe they're trying to buy a home, maybe they're trying to buy, an investment property, and they need to show higher income. But then if they purchase some S&P equipment, then it would make more sense that year to capitalize the cost, meaning spread the cost over multiple years instead of taking that lump sum in one year. So I would say that is something that you would want to consider, and you would want to sit down with a tax professional to see if that makes sense for your situation. Because again, S&P artists especially, you guys are a different breed. You guys are focused. You guys are doing so much and really business minded. And so if you're trying to, get some property, then it may not be the year to show a ton of deductions, and you just have to be strategic about it. So that's one thing I would tell all SMP artists, is to make sure that it makes sense to expense or capitalize.
I was under the impression that showing everything like that as an expense, like that was a good thing.
It can be a good thing, right? I mean, I think in general, I think in most years, you want to do that because you want to pay the least amount in taxes. But if you're trying to get qualified for a large home, then it's going to work against
Okay.
you.
I see. I got you now.
It's going to work against you. So that's what I'm saying. It's a tax strategy, right? So you may not want to claim all of those deductions that year, even though you purchased the equipment that year.
See, this is why social media be having people all crazy because
Oh,
I'm listening
absolutely.
to videos of Grant Cardone talking about I got 30 million in this, so I'm gonna spread it out to 2 years. So now I could go and buy a jet and I don't gotta pay for it this year because it rolls over into the next year. So I'm like, oh, okay, I got 100 and something thousand in expenses this year. Like this is gonna be great. And then when you hear the CPA was like, oh yeah, well, you'll be able to roll it over. And I'm just thinking, like, oh, okay, that's great. That's less taxes
Yeah, and it
I
can
have to
be,
pay,
right?
which is good, but they don't make you aware of like if you want to utilize the business part to make further purchases, like for personal stuff,
Exactly.
pretty much you kicking yourself in the behind.
Yeah, another thing that I hear a lot on social media, you'll hear, well, Jeff Bezos don't pay no taxes and Amazon don't pay taxes. I'm just like, listen, you don't have Amazon problems, okay?
Yeah, I know. But I'm like, you can't put information like that out to the average
Yeah,
person. I mean, you talking about
exactly.
multi-billion dollars, dude. Like, come on.
Right.
Don't
And
nobody relate with that. Three people,
nobody.
three
Stop.
people, that's three people relate with that.
Exactly. Stop comparing yourself to Jeff Bezos and Amazon. You really comparing your salon to
Yeah, yeah. Yes.
Amazon?
You're
Like, don't do
78, you're
that.
78,000 to their 78 billion. So what are some specific tax considerations or benefits for self-employed individuals in the beauty or the cosmetic industry, like
Yeah.
deductions for supplies or equipment?
Yeah, so I would say anything that you're purchasing for your business is going to be tax deductible. And I know that's the question, like what can we deduct? And I tell people it's so broad. You can deduct so many things. So what I like to tell people is I put it into three different categories. You can deduct things that save you money in your business. You can deduct things that advance you in your business, and you can deduct things that make you money. So if it's going to save you money, advance your business, or make you money, it's going to be tax deductible. And I tell people, put it through that test, whatever you want to purchase. So if you're like, okay, this tool, well, okay, is it going to advance your business? Is it going to make you money? Then it's deductible. Is it going to save you money in your business? Then it's tax deductible. Is it going to make you money, save you money, or advance your business? If it can pass those tests, one of the tests, not even all three, it doesn't have to pass all three, but if it passes one of the three, then it's tax deductible.
Got it. Now, I get a lot of new SMP artists that always hit me up, and they do their initial investment into the training and getting their studio up and going. So they're always looking for means to how to market themselves. And I'm huge at always saying, listen, everything I wear has my name on it. Absolutely everything. I can even take off these freaking sneakers I'm wearing right now that I done damn branded because that's just
Hey,
that's just
then
what I
it's tax
do. So
deductible. You're a
now
walking billboard.
is that tax is that
Absolutely.
deductible?
Because this is your brand, right? Scalp Solutions. Yes.
Okay. I listen again. I'm going off of at this point right now. I don't trust anything social I've heard from social media because I that's where I originally heard it from, and I went and I started like saying I was like, listen, I don't tell them like to write it off, but I tell them, listen, you don't have money for marketing and you really want to bootstrap it, like stop wearing that Gucci this, etc. Like
That's
if
right.
they're not paying you, get yourself a little heat press machine, et cetera, and just make, mark your clothes with your
With your
brand and
business,
go up.
with your
And you
brand.
are in fact able to write that off.
And that is
We don't need
absolutely
to talk
true.
about exactly how you write it off, what it is, guys. If that's what you want to do, then you already know who you got to call right now, right?
That's right.
All right. So now, are there any unique taxes, any unique tax challenges or opportunities you think that SMP artists should be aware of compared to other businesses?
Yeah, I would say one thing that I found, because I have some clients that do SMP, and one question that I always get is, should I combine my SMP with my barber services? And I would say that it's up to preference. Like some people want to keep it all under one brand, and then I have some people who want to separate it and run it like a completely different business. And I would say, as an SMP artist, I think that is something that you need to figure out how you want to approach it. Because if you want to run it as two separate businesses, then you're talking about two different LLCs. Then you're talking about two different tax returns. So, potentially, right? So it really depends on how you want to set it up. So I would say that's a challenge to figure out how you want it structured in that way. Because, is that something like I have a client that said to me, well, eventually at some point, I want to sell my SMP brand. Well, then you want to set that up as a different company. And maybe we have two different tax returns so that when you are ready to sell that business, like you can show the income and expenses from that business because you don't want it meshed with your other barber services because then it's going to be more difficult to sell or to explain the finances. So I would say that is a challenge that people don't think about until they're too far down the road.
Got you. Understood. And now, how can you best track or document your business expenses to make sure that you are taking full advantage of tax deductions?
Hey you guys, we are excited to share with you some very exciting news. We have created an online training platform that you can do in the palm of your hand.
With over 20 modules and nearly 80 lessons, this is the most comprehensive and detailed scale microimplementation course out there.
For those of you who can't travel here, maybe you're in other countries, you can now learn from your computer, you can sit at home, you can sit in a bus, and you can learn scalp micropigmentation with the greatest innovators in this industry.
Want to learn more? Click the link below.
Yeah, so I would say definitely that comes down to, record keeping. And so you think it's really like three ways, in my opinion, in how you do this. You can either do it manually, pen and paper, old school, right? I mean, that still works.
Yeah.
And then you can do something that is semi-automated. It's not fully automated, but you could work with an accounting software like QuickBooks. Now, for SMP artists that do QuickBooks, I would say don't do the self-employed version. I know it's the cheapest version, but it's really not as robust as the QuickBooks Online, and those are actually two different products. So definitely, QuickBooks Online would be something I recommend. That's for the partially automated because you still have to go in and categorize and track, and then also you want to make sure that you're putting in your cash because the QuickBooks or the accounting software is only going to capture what's going in and out of your business account that's linked to the software. So that's the second way. And then the third and final way would be to, have an accounting firm like the Hair CEO Group or someone else that you're working with that is doing your monthly bookkeeping for you. And again, making sure that they're capturing all of your income, and that's including the cash that's coming in, and maybe you spent something on your personal card one week, like letting them know that so we can capture everything.
Got
So,
it. And now, is that a service that you guys offer?
oh, absolutely. Yeah, the bookkeeping, monthly bookkeeping. Yeah.
So here's what I started with QuickBooks, and then just like any other busy, I was like, this is getting crazy. And then the people that I did speak to that offered, the same service, like what you do, like monthly, I just wasn't convinced that they were gonna really help me out. So what I ended up doing and what I'm doing now is I got an Amex card, and I just absolutely every single purchase that I make is only on that card for my business, so that at the end of the year I'm able to print out that the end of year report
Yep.
and just submit that. Is that a good way of
No,
book?
absolutely not. I mean,
Right,
I'm
we're gonna have to talk a lot, a lot.
that is, I do not recommend that. And here's the reason. Partially, you get partial credit. So the partial credit comes in because you're using a credit card. And I love that you're able to write off, everything that you have on that Amex, and you hopefully are getting some points and,
Yeah,
the perks, right? Yes, I want you to have those. The problem is that when you're talking about business, you want to see the expenses in relation to the income. So the income isn't coming into the Amex card. So you're looking at two different places to figure out how your business is doing. You got your bank account with all of the income, and then you got to go to your Amex for all the expenses. And so you're looking at two different places. I need you to be looking at everything in the same place so you can make decisions based on both sides of the story, what's coming in and what's going out. And so that accounting software is going to have it together. Another reason is because if you're doing everything on that Amex, which again, not a problem, but then nothing is categorized. And so at the end of the year for a tax person, that's a nightmare. Like I would be like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna need you to sit down and categorize that because I'm not doing it, because then everything is just like bunched up, even though everything is a tax deduction or, a business expense. Now I got to go in and figure out, okay, what's advertising, what's equipment. And that's a nightmare. Think about trying to do that for 12 months. Like that's a lot.
I don't even have to think about it because that's exactly what I did for 2021.
Yes, that's a nightmare. You don't want to do that.
The CPA that I'm dealing with now, that's soon to be fired, was like, there's no way I'm gonna categorize that for you. So she gave me a spreadsheet, and I did do. And what you just explained, how I'm looking at two things, I just thought, all right, this is part of the game, buddy. Like you want to be an entrepreneur, like this is part of the struggle. And listen, that was incredibly stressful for me to do. Like there were times I was just like, I can't do this anymore, and it took me a really long time to complete it. But yeah, I was toggling through both, and she gave me a spreadsheet and it was like, here are your categories. Like, is it advertising? Is this outside, whatever, independent contractor, et cetera, et cetera. I was like,
yes, it's a lot.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm working with a lady right now. We're still doing her 2021 and 2022. And I told her the exact same thing because she doesn't have an accounting software. And I was just like, ma'am, you need to categorize all this. I'm not doing it. Ain't this from 2 years ago? I'm not doing that.
So let me ask you a question. If the CPA that I'm currently dealing with now filed for an extension for this year's taxes, does that mean she has to be the one to do my taxes?
No.
For last year?
No.
So we could still, all right, cool. She's definitely.
And here's another reason. So I gave you
definitely done.
Here's another reason why I don't want you to, do your record keeping that way. The third reason is because, again, financial statements. Although you're not a publicly traded company, let's say you want to buy something or get funding or go to a bank for any particular reason. If you're trying to do anything for your business, a bank is going to ask for your balance sheet and your profit and loss statement. If you are dealing in Amex and a bank account, you can't go to a bank and say, here's my business. They want to see an income statement. They want to see that profit.
For a loan. You're talking about for a loan, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
You know what? And I'm not even going to use this as an excuse because obviously what I'm doing is wrong, but I'll tell you what was my thought process. Because I was like, one, I'm never going to go to a bank and ask them for money because I'm just going to leverage these 6 Amex cards that
okay.
So I was kind of like, that's why I even started, going down there. I was like, okay, I got these, the credit limits, they're at 100. So if I need to, this is what I'm going to leverage. I'm not going to go to the bank.
Gotcha.
But even with those, the P&Ls, having to do it myself.
Yes.
It was such a pain in the ass.
I can't even imagine.
And I just want to be super transparent because for the most part in this industry, like those that do know me and they follow me, they look for me as hey, this is the business guy because they know I have this, I have other businesses. So it's like, oh, he's savvy, he knows what he's doing. And hey, sorry, I let you down. Came to the tax. I just did a cannonball and I was like, I'm going to keep tabs on my own money. Nobody's going to mess up my money. Here we are.
That's so funny.
So can you explain the tax implications of leasing or renting a studio that's going to be used for as an SMP clinic?
Yeah. So if you're leasing it and, or renting, it's going to be 100% tax deductible. So on your tax return, make sure, you are capturing the rent that you're paying, especially if you're paying in cash, which I know a lot of people do. They make those cash payments, but if it's in cash, there is no record of it unless you're keeping a receipt or you're writing a check. But if you're just giving cash at the end of the week or at the end of the month, then, and you're not recording it, then you don't even have that to write off as an expense. And then also not just like writing it in a book, but keep like some type of receipt, Because again, if you're ever audited, you can tell the IRS, oh yeah, I paid, $20,000 this year in rent. Well, they're gonna say, well, where's the receipt? Oh, I paid in cash. Where's the receipt? They want the receipt.
Got you. So I've only done it twice, and it was at the very beginning in my current space that I didn't just have access to my checks, and I had cash on me, and I was like, "I'll give you cash," and he broke out a little receipt that put, all right, for March, here's what, $2,500. Is that acceptable?
Absolutely. Yeah. And here's the thing, because and the argument could be made that everything else was done via check or card. It's something that was recorded. So if there were 2 months that were done in cash that wasn't recorded, and let's say you didn't have the receipt, that would be an easier case to win, because that was just 2 months out of 12 months that you did cash. I would still want you to have receipts for the best argument, because when you think about it, you really want to think about taxes like the law, right? So you always want to ask yourself, what would be the proof that this happened? Like, that's the way you have to look at it. And that's why keeping your receipts are so important. Sometimes it's not just enough to say, oh, well, I swiped my card. Well, yes, you swiped your card, but we don't know what was all in that receipt. So, I'll have people say, oh, I went to Home Depot. Well, that was for the shop because I was doing some repairs. Well, how do I know you didn't go in there and buy laundry detergent for home, or, you know what I mean? Like lawn equipment. I don't know that. The IRS doesn't know that. And that's the argument the IRS is going to make. So always think about it like the court of law, because the tax code is law. So it's like, okay, how would I defend this? You got to have the receipt.
Gotta have the receipt. I was under the impression that if I didn't have the receipt, well, here's the bank statement showing where it came from.
Not necessarily.
Here we go. See, you slipping, Dave. You slipping. You're going to jail. You're going to jail.
Here's the thing. I know keeping receipts is like difficult. So what I tell people is, just snap a picture of it real quick. As soon as you do it, get into the habit, just snap a picture and then email it. So if you have QuickBooks, you can email it to QuickBooks and they'll store it. And then I just throw the receipt away, because now it's in the cloud. I trust the cloud. I don't know if I should trust the cloud. That might be something that's wrong with me, but I trust the cloud.
Cloud is gone. IRS.
Right.
Appreciated the. So while we're on the topic of cash, let's talk about Zelle, because we know there's this new
tax law.
The tax law with the whole $600.
Yep.
I, for one, no longer accept Zelle. So when they're like, oh, I'll pay you in cash, and they're like, do you accept Zelle? I'm like, that's not cash. Like, I don't want, that's going to get, that means the man knows what's going on. Like, can you explain on that? Is that in fact the thing, like $600, anything under the $600 not getting recorded? Or we still take those kind of payments and not worry about suffering.
Right. So, and of course, just want to preface it, we are not discussing ways to evade taxes, but I just want to explain the law. So when I am explaining the new law, the IRS says that all third-party credit card companies have to now report the income from small businesses once their transaction amount is over $600. Prior to 2023, that amount was $20,000 or 200 transactions. And so that's going to take effect for 2023. So once you swipe more than 600, yes, it's going to be reported to the IRS. But Zelle has come out on their website under their FAQs. They do not fall into the category of a third-party processor. So they are not required to report income over $600 because they are not a third-party credit card processor.
Man, Zelle is messing with the Illuminati. Somebody in Zelle is asking for trouble.
And here's the thing, and that's what is on their website. This is not, some people say, oh, it's a loophole. No, it's not a loophole. Actually, I take that back. It is a loophole because people use it. Loophole. It is a loophole. Yes, I say it is definitely a loophole. However, I would caution people who are listening to this like, oh yeah, I'm gonna take Zelle. Remember, evading taxes is against the law, and I am not suggesting that. But what I am saying is that also think about the long term. If you're trying to buy a home, if you're trying to buy an investment property, I want you to claim every single dollar because you want to show higher income so that you can get approved for loans. So just keep that in mind as well. But yes, you can go to Zell's website right now, and they have this, like the first question they have under frequently asked questions.
That's awesome. Of all possible, is like, nah, I want to know.
That's their first question that they answer.
That is
Will you report my income to the IRS?
That's insane. So would there be, right, as an SMP artist, just like with barbers or cosmetologists, anybody in the PMU industry, there's always some sort of new technique that comes out, something I want to invest and just better myself or the business. Now, if I sign up for like a master's class, are there any tax incentives for that? Will I be able to write that off?
Absolutely. You'll be able to write it off because remember, that is advancing your business, or it's in the process of making you money. So it's going to fall into one of those categories. And because of that, it's going to be tax deductible. Now, you can't take a course on, how to basket weave and that be tax deductible, because then it's like, how is that ordinary and necessary for an SMP artist? How is that ordinary and necessary for a barber? I mean, if you can explain it to me, I'm all for it. You can explain to me how that's going to make you more money or how that's going to advance your business. I'm all for it. Maybe you
We're offering holistic experiences over here.
Exactly. Hey, if you can explain it to me, I'll explain it to the IRS. But it's got to be ordinary and necessary.
That's awesome. I'm looking at this sheet that I have here, and we haven't even made a dent on all the questions that I want to ask you, and I know it's super important for us because we need to know this. So I mean, maybe it's too soon to say, hey, you ready? You willing to come back for round two?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And here's what I'll do for your folks. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put together like a sheet of just like SMP specific tax tips. And it'll be at thehairceo.com/SMP taxes.
Outstanding. Awesome. I appreciate that.
Yeah. So that they can go to that and you can put that in the show notes. I'll send you the link and it'll be available. They'll be able to download it and it'll be specifically for SMP. I'll make sure, because you sent me a lot of questions. I just want to tell y'all, like, you really care, because I was looking at these questions like these SMP folks are about to be blessed.
I was like, listen, I got to take care of my people. I don't want if they following me, look, guys, I'm sorry I let you down. Your boy done slipped up. You know what I mean? That's why I had to bring you on. So Jennifer, before we do wrap it up though, I got one last question, if you don't mind. What are some red flags that might trigger an audit from the tax authorities, and how can individuals avoid them?
Yeah, so I would say, again, for your industry, and the IRS knows your industry because that's one of the questions on your tax return. So you always want to keep that in mind, is that's how the IRS is able to trigger audits, because they're looking at your industry code and they're looking at the deductions that you're taking. And if anything seems out of whack or a little odd, then you potentially could get flagged. So some things that I would say be careful about are, really high car expenses. So a lot of them, another big question that I get, can I put my car in my business name? Or, can I wrap my car with my SMP business and now is a tax write-off I can buy, put in my, no, not necessarily, because the IRS is going to want to know, well, when are you using that car for your business? And is it more than 50% of the time? And trips back and forth to your studio are not tax deductible. And so that's not even a trip that's tax deductible. So unless you are a mobile SMP barber or, SMP artist, or, you are traveling just a ton in your business, it may not make sense to put a car in your business name or to try to write off the car on your taxes. That's going to be a red flag for sure, because they're going to be looking for a mobile SMP artist at that point. I think another thing that could potentially trigger an audit is if you have SMP services that you provide in your home and you're like, oh, I'm gonna write off my entire basement. Well, if the IRS comes in and they see that you're only doing SMP in one area of your basement, not the whole basement, then you could get dinged for that, because a lot of people will try to say, oh, it's the whole basement, I'm gonna write off the whole section. Well, it's got to be an exclusive and exclusive space in your basement that you're saying is only for SMP or your barbering services. So that's another thing that I would say would set off some alarms there.
Well, you better listen, guys. You better not be performing no freaking SMP in your basement, all right? But the way things been going lately, I done seen videos of somebody doing SMP in the kitchen with their abuela in the background cooking, and I'm all for the hustle because I get it. You got to start somewhere, but listen, don't be doing no SMP in your basement trying to claim that shit. All right, it doesn't look good for the industry, and it's not good for the IRS. All right,
right. That's definitely a red flag. And then they can go to your IG page and see that you in the kitchen. They're gonna be like, really?
Oh no, this is a legit video. I'm gonna find it. I'm gonna send it to you. Oh yeah, my man was doing his thing at the kitchen table while I was in the background doing the habichuelas, bro. The industry is big yet small, but that thing circulated. We were like, "There's no way." I was like, "My man is."
I'm over here crying.
Yeah, he was getting it in. So when you said that with the basement, I'm like, oh, somebody's gonna hear this and go, "Oh, I could write this off." Like,
right.
Nah, brother.
Now they like, oh yeah, I pay for my whole rent, and I just write off as a tax deduction because I do SMP at home.
Please don't do that to
write off your
us.
whole mortgage though? You writing off your whole rent?
Yeah. Please don't do that to us. This is an industry we trying to preserve. Like, don't be doing that.
Yes.
So Jennifer, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and dropping some gems. I know I'm sorry that the email was a little overwhelming with all the questions, but I knew we weren't going to be able to tap in. But I am happy to have you back on so you can drop some more gems to my people. And I do appreciate you, doing what you did on your website for my community so they could tap in. Before we go, just let them know again one more time where they can reach you, websites, social media, all that good stuff, please.
Yeah. So again, I'll have a recap of all of my answers to the questions that you sent with 17, I think. So I'm gonna make it available. It'll be on my website, thehairceo.com/SMP taxes. And then if you want to find me on social media, it's at The Hair CEO. I'm also on YouTube at The Hair CEO. And, just my website, thehairceo.com. So all social media outlets.
Outstanding. Awesome. One more time, Jennifer, thank you for coming on the podcast, taking out some time from your busy schedule. That's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Scalp Solutions podcast. Until the next time, peace.
Bye.
So feel me rain from behind. Black rain, peace through in the game. Black rain, through the struggles and the strain. Black rain, elements of mine. To feel the rain from behind. Black rain, peace through in the game. Black rain, through the struggles and the strain. Black rain, elements of mine. To feel the rain from behind. I'm sorta like a killer devil rebel. The getaway cars are the sounds of the bass and the treble. Cause I get into mine able and ready.